Hello dear students, welcome back to my channel Nisha Verma's tutorial. I am Nisha Verma with my new chapter, We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together, written by Gordon Cook and Alan East. This chapter is divided into three sections. In the first section, author describes how he has planned to duplicate the world record made by Captain James Cook 200 years ago. And in second section, he describes how he was caught up in the roughest sea in the ocean and how he struggled to come out of that situation. And in third section, he describes how he worked hard, how he struggled to save his family and himself, and how relaxed he was when they were able to survive in that roughest weather. Let's read the chapter, We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together by Gordon Cook and Alan East. In July 1976, my wife Mary, son Jonathan 6, daughter Suzanne 7 and I set sail for Plymouth, England, to duplicate the round-the-world voyage made 200 years earlier by James Cook, Captain James Cook. For the longest time, Mary and I, a 37-year-old businessman, had dreamed of sailing in the wake of the famous explorer, and for the last 16 years, we had spent all our leisure time honing our seafaring skills in British waters. In 1976, author, along with his wife, Mary, son Jonathan, who is 6 years old, daughter Suzanne, who is 7 years old, how they decided to go on the round-the-world voyage as they wanted to duplicate the world record made by Captain James Cook. As he was a businessman, he has decided to go on this long voyage around the world. He wanted to explore the world through the voyage. So for that, he has started preparing himself from 16 years. Whenever he got the time, whenever he got the holidays, he used to prepare for the sea journey. And for that, in the British waters, he has practiced so many times and he was trying to be skillful on the seafaring. Our boat, Wave Walker, a 23-meter, 30-ton wooden hulled beauty, had been professionally built and we had spent months fitting it out and testing it in the roughest weather we could find. The first leg of our planned 3-year, 1-leg, 5,000-kilometer journey passed pleasantly as we sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. There, before heading east, we took on 2 crewmen, American Laurie Vigil and Swiss Herb Sigler, to help us tackle one of the world's roughest seas, the Southern Indian Ocean. So as author has decided to go on voyage round the world, for that he built this boat professionally. It was given the name Wave Walker. It was 23 meter in length and 30 meter in weight. It was made of wood. It was beautifully made, professionally built, as they spent months on testing it in the roughest weather, because they have to cover the roughest weather also. So when they began their journey, 1,05,000 kilometers journey was really pleasant enough. They enjoyed it. They sailed toward the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. It was really a pleasant journey. They enjoyed, all of them enjoyed a lot. And now as they have to go towards the Southern Indian Ocean, towards the world's roughest sea. So for that, they have hired 2 crewmen, one American Larry Vigil and a Swiss Herb Sigler, because they knew that further they have to tackle the worst weather in the Southern Indian Ocean. On our second day out of Cape Town, we began to encounter strong gales. For the next few weeks, they blew continuously. Gales did not worry me, but the size of the waves was alarming, up to 15 meters, as high as our mainmast. So, when they started from Cape Town to Southern Indian Ocean, on the very next day, they were face to face with the strong gales. As it continued for the weeks, the gales were not the reason of tension? The reason of tension was the waves. Because the waves were increasing alarmingly. It was up to the height of the mast, main mast, 15 meters high. The waves were increasing days after days. December 25 found us 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. Despite atrocious weather, we had a wonderful holiday complete with a Christmas tree. New Year's Day saw no improvement in the weather, but we reasoned that it had to change soon, and it did change for the worse. So they celebrated Christmas also in the east of Cape Town. Although the weather was very bad, even still they enjoyed the Christmas holidays. They decorated the Christmas tree, and they were just having the hope that after the new year, when the new year will begin, the weather will surely change. Yeah, it changed, but for worse. It was not for good, but for worse. At dawn on January 2, the waves were gigantic. We were sailing with only a small storm jib and were still making 8 knots. As the ship rose to the top of each wave, we could see endless enormous sea rolling towards us, and the screaming of the wind and spray was painful to the ears. To slow the boat down, we dropped the storm jib and lashed a heavy mooring rope in a loop across the stern. Then we double lashed everything, went through our life raft drill, attached lifelines, donned oilskins and life jackets, and waited. So on January, they met with the gigantic waves, with the huge waves. As they were sailing with the only one small storm jib, and they have slowed down the speed of the boat, it was only 8 knots. But the waves were so high that it were reaching the top of the ship. They could hear the noise of the waves, the noise of the wind, which was very painful to the ears because it was making unbearable noise. So the first step which they took to save the ship was they slowed down the speed of the boat. For that, they dropped the storm jib, and then they lashed a heavy mooring rope across the stern. Then they double lashed everything, and then they also went through life raft drill. And then they were ready to face the danger. They just kept on waiting the danger to come. The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. The wind dropped and the sky immediately grew dark. Then came a growing roar and an enormous cloud towered aft of the ship. With horror, I realized that it was not a cloud, but a wave like no other I had ever seen. It appeared perfectly vertical and almost twice the height of the other waves, with a frightful breaking crest. In the beginning, it seems as if everything was going smoothly. There was silence, and silence was dangerous because it was ominous silence, which was indicating towards the different situation. And the same thing happened in the evening time when the disaster came at 6 p.m. The wind started blowing and it grew darker outside, and they could hear now the roaring of the sea. It seems that a huge cloud had burst out, but it was not exactly the cloud, it was the wave, and the size of the wave was so high that even author could not differentiate between cloud and wave. He thought it a big cloud, but actually that was a very huge wave which has struck the wave walker. The roar increased to a thunder as the stern moved up the face of the wave, and for a moment I thought we might ride over it, but then a tremendous explosion shook the deck. A torrent of green and white water broke over the ship. My head smashed into the wheel, and I was aware of flying overboard and sinking below the waves. I accepted my approaching death, and as I was losing consciousness, I felt quite peaceful. With that roaring sound, the wave hit the wave walker. There was a tremendous explosion on the deck. and there was a torrent of green and white water inside the ship. Arthur was also smashed on his head, and he went towards the wheel. The ship was broken badly. It was smashed. Arthur got the injuries on the head, and he was sinking below the waves. He thought that now the death was in front of him. He accepted his approaching death. Now he was unconscious, and he was feeling very, very quiet and peaceful. Unexpectedly, my head popped out of the water a few meters away. Wave walker was near capsizing, her mast almost horizontal. Then a wave hurled her upright. My lifeline jerked taut. I grabbed the guardrails and sailed through the air into wave walker's main boom. Subsequent waves tossed me around the deck like a rag doll. My left ribs cracked, my mouth filled with blood and broken teeth. Somehow I found the wheel aligned up the stern for the next wave and hung on. As Arthur was unconscious, he thought that he was going to die. But no, he had not died, was unconscious. And when he got the conscious back, then he was able to pop out his head out of the water, and he could see the wave walker, which was horizontal now. Everything was broken on the wave walker. He tried to swim on the wave walker's main boom, but he was smashed by the water like a rag doll. The waves tossed him as if he was a doll made of rags, not a human being. The flow of the water was so powerful that he could not have control on his own body. He looked like a rag doll. His ribs were cracked. His mouth was filled with the blood because his teeth were broken. But somehow he managed to go to reach the wheel and try to save the wave walker, and he hung there till the next wave. Students, watch my next video for the second part of the chapter. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together.